We usually need the server to respond with an HTML view template, but with dynamic content inside. Instead of generating a big HTML string and responding with that, we can use a dynamic template language like EJS, short for Embedded JavaScript. There are many options for a template language, but EJS is the simplest of them all. We will be using the EJS template language engine to server render our JavaScript front-end components. Setting up EJS to work with Express is very simple. This is the magic line that we need, which sets the view engine to be EJS. Express takes care of all the details after that. By default, and this can be configured, Express will look for the EJS templates under a views folder on the root level. Let's create an index.ejs file under that views folder. And inside index, I will put a standard HTML template. The EJS files are regular HTML files, but we can embed JavaScript in them using these template tags. For example, let's output a math random number. To render an EJS template, for example, on the root level, we can use the response.render method, passing in the name of the template without the extension, which is the default. Of course, EJS is a dependency, so we need to bring that in with npm. Once we have that, start the server one more time, and let's test. We'll see our index.ejs file rendered with a random number, and every time we refresh, we get a new random number. We can also pass variables from Express into EJS using the second argument of render. For example, let's pass in a content string here, and let's try to use it. In the EJS template, this content variable will be available as a regular JavaScript variable, so we can use it here directly. And when we test, we'll see the string coming from Express rendered with EJS. If the content string had HTML markup in it, for example, if EJS was wrapped in an EM tag, then by default, the EJS template tag equal will escape the content. To output the variable unescaped into the template, we can use a dash template tag instead. Testing that, the HTML is rendered. Another useful feature in EJS is that it supports partial views. For example, this header portion of the HTML is likely to be rendered exactly the same in multiple EJS template. We can take it to its own partial EJS file. Let's call this file header.ejs, paste it in here. I'm going to change the title, make sure that we're rendering this new one instead of what we had before. And then in index.ejs, I'm going to replace this header with an include call, include header. Now let's go ahead and test that. So you can see the new header was rendered. We can do the same thing for footer. I'm going to go ahead and create footer.ejs. And let's take this part, put it in footer, and similar to include header, we're going to go ahead and include footer. Make sure all is good. And we're all set to using EJS. There are some great alternatives to the packages we used so far. For example, instead of Express.js, we could use the new Koa framework, which uses middleware generator functions and provides a higher level syntax sugar on top of the low level middleware layer. There's also Happy.js, which claims to be more focused on delivering the business value. There's also Sales.js, which is inspired by the MVC pattern in Ruby on Rails. For templating engines, the most popular one is actually Pug, which used to be Jade. Pug uses a whitespace sensitive syntax with indentation replacing the need for begin-end tags. Another popular template language is Handlebars, which focuses on semantic templates. I actually like Handlebars the most. It's my go-to template language, but EJS was a much simpler choice for this course. There are many other options for both a web framework and a template engine. No matter what options you end up picking for a project, just make sure they are properly maintained on GitHub and responsive to any issues filed by the community. While the syntax will be different, the concepts are mostly the same. Back in our project, I added Bootstrap CSS framework here in header and added the container class to the body element, did a little bit of cleanup, and I think we're ready to start doing things on the front end now.